Hi, welcome to Second Earth Alternative. This is Felipe Osorio, your host. So I got a picture from subscribers, and apparently it shows what looks like a UFO, and I just kind of wanted to show my audience the picture and just get your guys' impression on it. So this picture came from a user named Robert. I'm not going to give him his full name just out of respect, out of his privacy, but basically what he explained to me in the email is that he took this with his Samsung phone, and then he looked at the pictures, noticed that there was some weird object, and then decided to go outside again to retake the picture. I took this photograph and I went ahead and I put it through a site called EZTrue, which basically allows you to authenticate the pictures. It gives you all this metadata. It tells you whether the image has been altered, whether there's any kind of alterations that happen, or whether it came straight out of the phone. So with this particular image, and I want to show you guys what he captured here. Okay. Now, do you see that object right there? It's not 100% definitive, but if you start playing with the levels, you can kind of tell that this doesn't really look like an airplane or anything that's a normal craft. And there also is another anomaly on this side. So yeah, I mean, at the very least, it's interesting. So thank you, Robert. If anybody else has footage or pictures that they would like to submit, you can contact me in my email, eafiles.contact@gmail.com. All right, guys. So now for the real meat of the episode. All right, I've been wanting to do this episode for a while. We're going to be talking about the Dogon people and why are they so special. Basically, the Dogon tribe is a tribe in West Africa that they've been around. Nobody knows for certain how long they've been there, but some estimates puts them as far back as 5,000 years. So that put them around 3000 BC, which was next to like ancient Egypt, Sumeria times. So these people have been there for a while. They live in Mali and Cote d'Ivoire in West Africa. But what's so amazing about this small culture is that they've been mostly isolated from mainstream cultures. And it was only in the 1930s that these French anthropologists went there and kind of uncovered their culture for the first time. Now, just to give you a little detail about the Dogon tribe, they live in these cliff dwellings that require ropes for you to actually climb and get there, which was always kind of like a mystery to anthropologists. They couldn't understand how a primitive tribe would just be able to make this amazing cliff dwellings, in which require ropes to get there. But they also had agriculture. They had metallurgy, one of the few cultures that had metallurgy back then. They had astronomy, mathematics, and a general concept of physics. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but they actually believe in their legend that their world is made out of 11 eggs, and 4 of those eggs are cracked open. And maybe not everybody's familiar with this, but for the physicists and the scientists who are aware of this, there is a theory out there called string theory that postulates that the entire universe basically vibrates in a string of 11 different dimensions. And 4 of those dimensions are open, just as the Dogon described. 11 eggs, 4 of them broken open. So that's kind of cool. But what was really, really impressive about the Dogon tribe is that they had this idea about their ancestors coming from the Sirius star system. Now, the Sirius star system is something that it's kind of very prevalent in a lot of different cultures. But the Dogon people specifically said that their ancestors did not just come from the Sirius star system, but they came from a star system that had multiple stars. And it wasn't just a binary system, they said it actually had 3 stars in their system. And they had names for these. I mean, for example, for the second star, they called that Po Tolo. Po Tolo, Tolo means star, Po means dense. In fact, Po doesn't just mean dense, it means the most dense thing they have. They use that word for, I believe, to represent seeds, and they also use that word to represent the concept of atoms. And what's so amazing is that they call this Sirius B, the second star, Potolo. And then upon observation, when scientists actually examined the star system, they realized that the second star is a white dwarf. And it's a highly, highly dense type object that somehow this West African tribe seemed to have known that, or because they described it like that. And now that they just described it like that, they said that the very material that Potolo, this highly dense star, is made out of, it's a material that doesn't exist on Earth. And that they're also right, because the material of a white dwarf is so concentrated. We're talking about like a kilogram equals almost like 20 metric tons. Like it's huge. It's highly, highly dense. They also had a term for a third star system, which they called Emaya, which was supposed to mean bigger and less dense. And that's where they said their ancestors, that's the home star of the ancestor. It's not the white dwarf, it's not Sirius B, but it's the third star system. Now here's what I found absolutely amazing. I mean, just shocking. This third star system supposedly does not exist, meaning we have not photographed this third star. However, in 1994, there was a paper that was written, an academic paper that was written, that specifically posited the possibility of a third star. Though this academic paper, though they said we could not physically see the star itself, they did, through mathematical analysis, come to the conclusion that a third star had to exist in a star system. And this happened in 1994. You know, this published paper in the astronomy journal. So how is it that a Dogon tribe, 5,000 years old, is talking about something that could have only been discovered in 1994? I think that's pretty amazing. Carl Sagan, even Carl Sagan said that the Dogon tribe would have had to have had some kind of knowledge from some more intelligent, some more advanced society. The thing is, Carl Sagan, I don't think he believed it was an extraterrestrial race. I think he just thought that they must have encountered some ancient astronomers or something to that effect. Okay, so outside of this amazing knowledge that somehow the Dogon tribe had, what I find so absolutely amazing about this culture is what they share with other cultures. For example, the Dogon tribe have this uncanny similarity with Egyptian culture, Buddhism, Sumerian, and perhaps even the Anasazi, the Hopi Indians from New Mexico. For example, the Dogon actually have their own hieroglyphs, their own system of writing that's not all that different from the Egyptians. They also, like the Egyptians, have a god called Amma. The Egyptian god is called Amen. And just as a footnote, Amen is actually, when Christians say Amen, Amen, that actually comes from the Egyptian god Amen-Ra. And the Dogon tribe had something very similar called Amma, and this is the originator god. This is the one that supposedly created all matter. The Dogon tribe and the Egyptian tribe and the Buddhism all share the same symbol for the sun, which is a circle and a dot. And I think this is kind of peculiar because I don't think a circle and a dot would be the first symbol that you would think of as a sun. Maybe just a circle by itself, or maybe a circle with rays, like how you draw as a kindergartner, not a circle with a dot. So when I see a circle with a dot and I see that in 3 different cultures, I find that a little bit strange. Something else that the Dogon tribe also had in common with Buddhism is the Dogon, they had this kind of mini pyramids that they called granaries. And the Buddhists also had these mini pyramids called stupa. I read this book called The Science of Dogon, written by Laird Scranton. I highly recommend this book, by the way, if anybody ever gets a chance. It's an amazing read. But Laird Scranton made a great point in deciphering these granaries, these small pyramids from the Dogon tribe. And he basically explained that these were a form of a calendar. And that not are they just situated perfectly north, south, east, and west, but each step actually represents a certain portion of the year, so that all 4 steps coming together to the peak of the pyramid accumulates to a whole year. And I believe that the Buddhists had very similar type of principles with their stupas. Okay, so those details are really interesting, right? But what I think is probably the most interesting thing about this tribe is their similarity with not just the Buddhists, not just the Egyptian tribe, but also the Anasazi Indians from New Mexico, because we're talking about people from a completely different continent. And the Anasazi had this concept for a god, right, that they called kachinas. They even built dolls that they called kachina dolls based on what they thought their gods looked like. It so happens that the Dogon people have very similar looking gods that they called Nommos. But I want to read this specifically regarding what the Dogon said about their Nommo gods. The Dogon tells the legend of the Nommos, an awful looking beings who arrived in a vessel along with fire and thunder. After they arrived here, they put on a reservoir of water onto the earth, then dove into the water. There are references in the oral traditions, drawings, and cuneiform tablets of the Dogons to human-looking beings who have feet but who are portrayed as having large fish skin running down their bodies. The Nommos were more fish-like than humans and had to live in water. They were saviors and spiritual guardians. The Nommo divided his body among men to feed them, and that is why it's said that the universe had drunk of his body. The Nommos also made men drink. He gave all his life principles to human beings. This is amazing, guys. I mean, we're talking about, this is describing an amphibian-looking being who came from the star system, and then the first thing they did is they created this reservoir of water where apparently that's where they resided, and then during the daytime they would come out of the water to teach the human beings. And according to the legends, there were 8 ancestors that were essentially endowed all the knowledge from these extraterrestrials, and it was the responsibility of these 8 ancestors to spread the knowledge to the rest of the tribes. And this idea of these ancient ancestors or ancient medicine men or tribesmen who were essentially endowed with this sacred knowledge, it's not just the Dogon people who had this. This is very common. They had it in Egypt. All the mystery school religions, they had this weird type concepts. So one other thing that I did want to bring up regarding this is, I don't know if you guys heard about this legend about the Sphinx, but supposedly the Sphinx might have actually been a reservoir of water. From what I read is there's a lot of weathering that's happening with the Sphinx, and a lot of people think that that had to have been due to some kind of like rain or maybe some previous ocean or water body that had come by. But according to what I was reading, there's this idea that maybe the Sphinx was where these amphibian beings went to, these Nommos. Or as the Dogon people call them, Nommos. But okay, let's think about this. So the Dogon people are talking about these amphibian beings who came from the star, who built this little water reservoir that they went to, right? So apparently these gods look like fish, right? Well, if you look at the Sumerian mythology and you look at the ancient gods, and then one of the first depictions of the gods with like these flying crafts above them, they look exactly like a fish. Jesus Christ was represented as a fish. If you look at the Pope's hat, the Pope has a hat that looks like a fish. So, and then, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Dogon tribe, the Egyptian, and the Sumerians all had this concept of a crucifixion. So they have a concept of a crucifixion. They have a concept of these amphibian gods who came down from the sky that look like fishes. So is it possible that what the entire Vatican is doing with all their garments or their Pope's hat or these ancient rituals, could they be actually referencing the ancient extraterrestrial visitors who came and visited Sumeria, visited Africa, you know, and apparently North America too? So is it possible that the pyramids were not man-made, but rather were either planned or built by the extraterrestrials? Here, take a look.
Discover what the KGB found in an Egyptian tomb.
The objective of this particular mission was to find the knowledge which was left behind from an advanced culture.
I was one of the first to be recruited by the KGB.
I don't believe the soldiers realized the significance of what they were looking at.
Got orders, you have to do it.
The first hard evidence of an humanoid extraterrestrial life form.
X suggests a mysterious chamber-like cavern lies below the Sphinx. This has led many to reconsider the legend of the Chamber of Knowledge.
Is there a storehouse of knowledge left behind by ancient visitors? Signs point to yes.
It's the period where military, after first safety precautions have been taken, entered without wearing gas masks, but that's what they do now was absolutely mistaken, and you will see why. Because they had to open sarcophagus after proper examination of the content. The fumes that turned out to be toxic come out. So, and the fumes which are coming out, we will see it later, intoxicate one of the soldiers. Under such circumstances, under this particular condition, they could be very poisonous. And that's why they invited the team of this chemical warfare specialists to check the contaminated area again and assist this soldier who lost his senses.
A computer projection was produced of the mummy as it originally lay in the sarcophagus. From the date scientists claimed they could ascertain the physiology of the individual, reconstruction of the facial features commenced.
Through the forensic reconstruction, they were able to replicate the face of a humanoid found in the tomb.
Characteristics include a large cranium, unusually large eyes, small chin, mouth small, visible, signs of teeth positive, long neck, estimated size of individual 2 meters.
Автомобильные фары.
At project labs in Moscow, the facial reconstruction neared completion.
I know this sounds unbelievable. I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't been there. But the reconstruction, the mummy, it didn't appear to be human. Maybe the legend is true. Maybe we found an extraterrestrial in that tomb.
Wow, if that ends up being true, that will rewrite human history. But I want to move on just for 1 second. I want to talk about the similarities between the Hopi Indians and the Dogon tribe. And it's something that you would not believe is possible from two cultures that are completely in different continents. For example, the Hopi Indians have these gods that they call kachinas. They made kachina dolls representing these gods, and they describe them as lizard people. Whereas the Dogon people describe their gods as frog-faced people. So we have two different cultures from two different continents describing their gods as not just amphibians, but literally giving like similar type animals that could represent similar type features. Another thing, both cultures required ropes to be able to get to their dwellings. The way they constructed the housings, the planning of it is very, very similar. And both cultures, of course, have gods who came from the sky. But here's where things got really, really crazy. The Hopi Indians have this belief, in the Dogon tribe also talk about this, that there were many worlds. There are many versions of humanity that have come about. And the Hopi Indians said that the first version was burned by fire. But before humanity was taken down by fire, apparently the Hopi Indians were led to an underground cavern that was essentially built by what they called ant people. Ant people. I mean, ant people, wouldn't that just be exactly like the alien that we just saw in the Egyptian video that I showed you? So the Hopi Indians basically said that after the sky fell with fire and everything got burned, that the ant people waited in the caves with them until everything was safe for them to go back to the surface of Earth. So I was doing a little bit more research, and this is where I was absolutely blown away, okay? Check this out. The Hopi language for word for friend is Naki. The Hopi language word for ant is Anu, meaning ant friend literally translates to Anunnaki. How amazing is that? Then I started looking further, right? And I thought, okay, so what are the Anunnaki, the Anunnakis, they're the sky gods who came from the Sumerian mythology. What are they saying in their mythology? Well, Zecharia Sitchin, who was one of the first linguistics, first interpreters of Sumerian language, he had written many books about this concept in which humans were essentially made as a slave race to some extraterrestrial species that came here a long time ago. And essentially, they made us to be a slave to create mine gold for them. They apparently, according to legends, they got tired and they had a dispute among each other in terms of how much labor they were doing. So they decided to genetically engineer Homo erectus to become Homo sapiens and use us as their slaves to help them dig gold. This is what Zecharia Sitchin is saying. But you can verify this. You can actually check out history and see, are there gold mines that are really, really ancient old? Yes. In South Africa, we have these gold mines that were discovered that were at least 80 to 100,000 years old. Okay, that's like way beyond any civilization that we know. What's even more amazing is that there is a tribe that has lived in that land for a long, long time, and they are the Zulu people. And so I thought, why not look up the mythology of the people who live next to these mines that apparently the Sumerians claimed were constructed by ETs. And guess what? The Zulu people in their mythology, I kid you not, talk about a time where there was no moon. And not just a time where there is no moon, they said that the moon was literally placed here. This is like almost independent confirmation of what we just talked about in that previous moon episode when we discussed, is it possible that the moon was put here? So not that the Zulu just have this mythology that Earth was one day without a moon, but they said that Earth used to be clouded. It was this beautiful, like paradise, and it used to be clouded in this like mist of water that would protect, Earth from the sun, and there was no seasons, they said. But when the moon came and was driven into its orbit, it created days and nights of rain, just like the mythology of the 40 days and 40 nights of rain. So they're literally saying, the Zulu people, that the moon was brought here, and that's what created all the weather patterns. And they said that after the moon was brought, that the Earth cleared away from the mist, and that it became this much more hostile place where the sun burned and everything was more aggressive. And lastly, the Zulu people also said that the moon was heated so much that it melted from the inside. And they said the lava spewed out and encrusted this planetoid. So, from all the evidence, from all the talks of saying that the moon could possibly be hollow, we now have confirmation by simply and just backtracking where these gold mines could have been from a Zulu tribe that literally talks about a time where there was no moon, and a time where the moon was brought here, brought 40 days, 40 nights of rain, and apparently made the planet a more hostile place, a more difficult place to live in. Wow, guys, so, oh my God, that was just, it's unbelievable just to think about these things. I mean, my mind just explodes with ideas of all the possibilities that are out there. But I just wanted to thank you guys once again for joining me. Let your friends know if you guys like this show. Let your family know about it, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because I will be coming out with newer videos. I think the next episode I'm going to do a little interesting topic regarding Antarctica. And I think a lot of people know that there's a lot of crazy things happening in Antarctica right now. So once again, thanks for joining me. This is Felipe Osorio, signing out.